welcome to the stage. I don't often get to host people up here, and I feel, I did wear my best kind of wizardiest robe, I think, today, taking a note from Jessa Moon yesterday, who encourages us to be wizards. So, but yeah, let's talk about yesterday, what were some of the themes that you all saw, both in what people were talking about or what stood out to you in the talks. What were the high points for you all?
Speaking of Jessa Moon, I loved how she incorporated the theme of the conference into her adventure storytelling, but I thought that it really was a very brave thing for multiple reasons. She was able to not only integrate the theme, but also talk about that collaboration between different roles inside of a company and how you can learn from one another and kind of set maybe some of your assumptions aside and be able to create something really audacious and relevant and valuable when you kind of come outside your comfort zone.
And I maybe it's just the lens through which I see things, but it feels like there was a lot of conversation about not so much hey, do this thing, but more, here's something to think about and encouragement to think differently, which I'm all for. So.
Good. What were some of the conversations? I know that both of you classically eavesdrop on a lot of people, and so
Guilty.
and it's hard not to do. When you're wandering around a room and you're just sort of hearing kind of what people are talking about. I know my ears perk up. What were some of the things you heard people talking about?
Well, I think one of my most interesting takeaways, just speaking with a lot of you at dinner last night, when I was asking you questions like, what were your favorite sessions, or what did you learn today? And overwhelmingly, you all were telling us that you learned a lot from the sessions, but what you were really learning the most from was each other. And that just is so beautiful. So to be able to connect in that way where you are, so many of us work alone. I heard from so many of you, and I used to feel this way too, that email is such a lonely job sometimes. Despite how much money it makes our companies, they don't tend to hire a lot of us or give us a big team. And so that feeling of loneliness can be so overpowering. And then you combine that with the fact that so many people work in remote or hybrid companies these days. And so I've heard, again, so many of you talk about how your coworkers are your dogs and your plants, which again is very lovely, but to every once in a while have some human interaction, as exhausting and overwhelming and overstimulating as it can be, it can also be a really amazing learning experience.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of you that I've talked to are here alone, and so a lot of you, this is the first conference you've come to alone, and I think that's really cool. Spending a lot of time working alone and showing up someplace and being brave and kind of reaching out and forging new connections like Logan asked everybody to and encourages. I think that's really neat. And then I think, kind of tactically, I think I've heard a lot of people excited about the writing and creative side of everything that you all do, which has been really nice too. That there's this beautiful mix of art and science in email, and it's been really fun to see that come to life here, especially it seems like there's a real hunger and energy around the creative side of everything. It's been fun.
Yeah.
So, speaking as somebody who has 3 cats for coworkers, which is a little bit, and I think I described this at dinner last night, a little bit like going to more like a co-working space. We're definitely not doing the same job. They seem to think what they're doing is very important. But I do feel like we have very different cadences of work. So getting to spend time with all of you, who I feel more connected to than my cats in some ways.
Not all.
Yeah, I think is really lovely to have. Oh yes, what were you gonna say?
No.
Oh no, you're just agreeing. Yep. So let's see, what else? So we were talking about certainly when we were putting together kind of the content for this, we did kind of want one of the themes to be, again, not just how to do things differently, but how to think about things differently, right? So we had that with Alison Bryant, right? With being able to think about how it's not just about testing, but what tests do work and what don't, which ones are worth your time, right? Things, because let me put it this way. how many of you like feel a sense of urgency around your email marketing all the time? Is that something that you all, yeah, right? Like there's such a sense of like perpetual urgency in marketing in general. And I would like to say that a fair amount of that is sort of self-created by some measure of things. And we don't often get the opportunity to slow down and step back and ask ourselves why we're doing these things and if the things that we're doing make sense for us. Or also, let me see a show of hands. How many of you all have inherited a legacy system of some sort in your job, right? And that's also just kind of very classically, I think, an email marketing experience is you're inheriting systems or tasks or things to do that are passed down from one generation to the next. And sometimes we have to unpack those in therapy and figure out like why we're doing these things and do they even serve me and why am I crying right now? And so that's, these are all good questions to ask. But I think, yeah, these are the sorts of things that were standing out to me, I think, thinking about like, I think the chance for this to be a space where people can take a step back and breathe, even as you're being a little overstimulated by the amount of, and also energized by the amount of people that you're having to interact with, I think is kind of a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Speaking of inheriting legacy programs, there was a question I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
And I'm like holding back a cough. Sorry, I'm crying for different reasons.
It's okay, Christine. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm really going to be okay, I promise.
You're going to be all right.
Talking to a lot of the people in the audience, I've heard the same story like over and over and over again. My company is really risk averse. My company will only choose vendors that are in the Gartner or Forrester report. Like my boss wants to hear a success story from 5 other people and proven ROI before they'll invest in blah, 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 blah. So when you've inherited this legacy system or this legacy way of thinking, how do you make this happen?
Yeah.
How do you influence from within?
And that it happens all the time. I mean, it happens at the entry level. It happened to me as a CEO going to my board.
Wow. Okay. So it happens even when you're the boss.
It happens literally. There's always pressure to do something differently. There's always pressure to do the safe thing or what someone else perceives to be the safe thing or something that aligns with someone else's perspectives, or to fit within the puzzle piece that surrounds you. Like, that's everywhere. In every job, in every company, in every stage of life. So we all know, like, to control the things you can. That's the truth. And so how do you think brave in those situations? You take a look at what can I control today? Maybe it's a subject line. It's not a completely new platform. It's the copy of an email or the tone that you get to use in a campaign. Like, you do have more control than you think, and it's really, really, really easy to go immediately to the yeah, but how am I going to prove value? Yeah, but how am I ever going to do this thing without this software that I need? Yeah, but how am I going to do it without funding? How am I going to do it without this extra person that I need on my team? Just focus on the things that you can control, and then I think that you'll find that by focusing on that, it will bring a lot more energy because you'll be able to drive some results. Again, those 1-degree decisions start to add up. And I know that feels like, oh, but I want to make change right now. But like little by little, as you train your brain to think that way, it does start to feel.
I was talking to some folks internally, and we described that as herky-jerky is the way that we call it, is the way that the progress feels.
Yeah.
Because like you're kind of like, okay, I can trudge like a step in this direction and I might get knocked off my course, but like it's so hard to make sweeping change all at once, and so to break it up into smaller chunks and to change what you can control.
Yeah.
Might feel herky-jerky, but...
I think, too, sometimes you need a perspective of like, how much more control you have now than you did a week ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago. Again, personally or professionally. Like, you might not be able to hire a person on your team, but maybe you can choose to rearrange your tech stack. Like, or you do have full control over the subject line now, and you didn't 3 years ago. Like,
Sure.
Yeah,
It's so, both thinking about like what are the things that are within our control, no matter how small. Because there's, again, as we talked about yesterday, there's enough that feels out of our control. So if we find the things, even if it's small, that we can control, and then also this idea of like that all success is incremental. Like everything is built off of baby steps, right? Like off of small things that we can control and that we build off of. Now you're sounding a lot more like my therapist. But it's true, right? Like that's something. And then, but I do like in particular the note that as you do focus on the things that you can control, and you are able to make small changes, make note of those and remember them and revisit them. Because again, in those moments where everything feels out of control, it's good to be able to like go back and have a list and being like, you know what? No, actually, I did do this. I changed the subject line. I changed our from address, right? Like I changed our reply to email. Like these are small things that we build off of in order to build. And that also is a way that we build trust, right?
Yeah.
It's how we build trust with our managers, with our bosses, with our teammates, is we make a small change. We ask them to trust us for a small change. We do that, we deliver on it, and then we are able to like ask for more next time, is the hope, right?
100%.
Yeah, will be good. I think, were there any things from the afternoon, anything in the industry trends, I think I'm curious about, like that stood out to you all or that were interesting to you all in any way, shape, or form?
Unsurprisingly, AI has been, I think, a big topic of conversation. And I think what's really interesting about a lot of the things conversations I've heard about AI, is that when we talk about learning from one another, that is the ripest field of fruit to pick from. Ooh, I'm making really weird analogies on the fly. Do you like this one?
I'm here for it.
Okay, we're here for the fruit. Okay. And so, because like no one really is an expert. Like this is what I love about greenfield new technology, is that like it's scary as hell, because like either your legal team has scared you into not using it, or you're afraid it's going to take your job, or there's tons of fear surrounding AI. There's also tons of like excitement and opportunity around it. And it's one of those things where, again, like no one's an expert. So the best way for you to like learn is just to sit down and talk to other people about it. And I don't know, actually, you all will appreciate this story. I was using AI to prep for this conference. And so for those of you that opted in to receive a conference buddy, I was using Claude because it tends to be better at data analysis than others to help with that. And at one point, it had actually suggested a bunch of pairings, and I was reviewing the list, and there were email addresses on the list that I didn't recognize. And I was like, Claude, where did you get this email address? And it was like, oh, thank you for asking and pointing out this error. I created fictional email addresses while I was, and I was like, but that defeats the whole point. And so, one of the lessons I learned about AI in preparing for Unspam was that I had to specify to my little eager intern friend, Claude, who is so happy and just excited to help me with anything I ask for, that you can't fabricate email addresses when the point is to match two email addresses and introduce them to one another. So anyway, I think that, like, I wouldn't have never known that. Like, how am I supposed to know that? Like, I've been pretty smart at this point in my career, but I didn't know that, and now all of you know it. If you ever use Claude to use buddy matching, tell it not to fabricate email addresses. But that's where we are with that piece of technology, is like, where it's a bunch of really smart people trying to train these like really eager like robot interns. And the only way we're gonna like learn how to collectively harness that itself and use it for good is to talk to each other about it.
I have a funny side note about AI also.
Okay.
I was really excited because I had this whole process that I wanted to try to do where I would, like many of us, give it a bunch of stuff, and I wanted it to give me an analysis back. Pretty simple. Yeah. And the custom GPT that I had created to do it just kept lying to me.
Oh, perfect.
So it was like, great, I'm reviewing it now. I'll get it for you later today. And I was like, later? That seems weird. And so later today happened, and I was like, hey, where's the summary? And it was like, oh, good call. I absolutely dropped the ball on that. I'll have it finished by 5 p.m. tomorrow. And I was like, what? And it kept acting like a person who kept dropping the ball. I was like, wait. I was like, I should actually share this conversation. At one point, I was like, wait,
Are you trolling me?
I know. I was like, it's like, come on, Logan, is that you? Are you? It was
me.
It was you. I knew it. But again, just this wasn't necessarily about yesterday, but just in AI in general, since we're all talking about it all the time, I think it's comical how worked up we as a society and like in our industries are so worked up about AI. I mean, just open up LinkedIn and like watch your pulse rate escalate. And yet, it's still so much in its infancy, and like we all know how to do our jobs. Like you all are really smart people, and AI is still kind of a dum-dum.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If we still have to tell AI not to fictionalize the email addresses, I don't think it's going to come for your jobs anytime soon.
Or to like make excuses about why it's not doing its work. I don't understand.
I mean, it's emulating. Now it sounds more like my cats as coworkers. Honestly, yeah, it's sort of doing that. Yeah. So you heard it here. AI is still kind of a dum-dum. I would say, like, as a quote,
Yeah.
I feel like that should go there.
If
That
that's
was
my
still on
legacy,
Twitter.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very worth noting. It is, I think, because there's so much kind of fear and anxiety around it, that reminding us that it's not scary because it's still not very good at what it does, I think is a very reasonable thing to bring up, right? Like, and still very much treating it like that eager intern that you still have to kind of shadow and follow and make sure that it's not making mistakes or lying to you constantly. Also sounds like kind of like a bad relationship in some ways as well. So maybe we should also keep in mind that as we are thinking about AI.
The other, if you were paying attention, the Lifecycle room was by far the most crowded, and so was the creative, which is where a lot of the AI conversations were happening yesterday. And so I think the other like thing that came out of yesterday was we've been talking about lifecycle marketing for a long time now in email, and there's even, if you're in Email Geek Slack, there's always, not always, but occasionally a lively conversation about, is there a difference between email marketing and lifecycle marketing? I remember someone was advocating for the creation of a separate lifecycle channel in Email Geeks, which is where that the conversation kind of came from. And so I think lifecycle started kind of like in SaaS and e-commerce, and now it's like bleeding out into practically like every industry that touches email. And sometimes it can mean, multi-channel, sometimes it can mean all these different things. But what I like to see is how so many people were interested in meeting in that room yesterday, and again, like sharing their learnings. And a couple of you came to me and said, we were just helping each other. Like we were going around the table, like round robin, like solving one another's problems. And if I compare what I was hearing in rooms like this 10 years ago, you would have been saying, well, I can't learn from someone that's not in my industry because it's not applicable to what I do. Or how many times have we been to a conference where you're sitting in like, it's a B2C focused track and you're thinking, well, I'm in B2B and I can't do that. I'm not hearing, or maybe I'm talking to the wrong people, I'm not hearing anyone in this room saying this.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm looking at this and I'm like, y'all are picking this up, right? Like you are being brave. You're saying that like, oh, I can learn from an industry that's not necessarily mine. I can be inspired by something where there's not a direct connection between what they people are doing. I'm not trying to copy and paste a trend that I see somewhere else and apply it to what I'm doing.
Right.
And so, I mean, hey, I'm so proud of all of you. Like, please pat yourselves on the back because that's a different level of thinking. Yeah. So that's something else I've seen in the last day.
100%. Yeah. Just adding to that, like I go to a lot of conferences.
Brag.
It's being at conferences is the coolest. But I mean, I do this a lot, and honestly, I'm not just saying this. And I was talking to people about it last night. This group of people, and I know it's like characteristic of unspam, but I also think it's really telling of email marketers in general. This is like the kindest group of professionals, and like and you all are like, yep. I mean, I was at the conference I was at last week was a bunch of CMOs, and there was like this, like us and them, and a whole lot of like
showing you my slides.
yeah, exactly, like B2B and B2C and gating and well, in-house versus fractionals, and well, startups versus enterprise. And it was all this like, you don't understand, like and then we come here and everybody's like, let's all share information. Let's like help each other be better. And you mean it. And I think that, I don't know if you all see that and feel that, but it's real. And I think it's in large part what you all are doing here with Unspam. But that's huge. And I think, so what do you do with it? Like, build the network, get to know each other, ask each other for emails and for email addresses, and I guess emails, given the group, and like connect on LinkedIn and like ask each other questions. Like this is not something you can find everywhere. So do with that what you will, but it's powerful. It's important.
It's powerful and it's important. Okay, I'm gonna draw a parallel here. We'll see if anybody follows me with it. So you're talking about how Lifecycle hasn't always been a part of the conversation, right? And it's developed in some industries and you don't talk about it in others. But when you get down to it, Lifecycle is just acknowledging a thing that was happening anyway, right? Which is that your organization, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit company, any of those things, your organization comes into contact with people, and there's a narrative there of like when they first come into contact, how you first kind of reach them as people, how you continue to try, and it's a relationship, right? What we're talking about is a relationship. It's very human. We're just like putting touch points and graphing it out in a way that we don't typically do with our personal relationships. I know some of you do, and I applaud that. So Lifecycle, I think, is a term that came to describe something that already existed. In actuality, we're just trying to get our heads around it a little bit better. And so when we're talking about it from those terms, while your products may be different, you may not have a product, you may be a different organization, understanding like, how do I engage with people, how do I maintain their interest and stay relevant and valuable to them? How do I try to help them grow, like in whatever way that happens for your organization, is something that happens. Now, in the same way, this is the parallel, we'll see if it tracks, is that like Unspam came to be in part because the email community is already this way, right? Like one of the things, I'm getting a little choked up about it, is that I adore, right, about our community is that we learn from one another. We depend on one another, right? Like, because there may be a few college courses out there now, but there haven't been for most of the existence of email marketing. It's all been, everybody finding their way into it from, doing MySpace CSS and, or like, you're like, get hired on for marketing, and they're like, yes, marketing, go do social. And you're like, okay, I'll learn that. And then they're like, okay, and email. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then you kind of find your way into it. Everybody kind of finds their way into this.
You don't choose email. Email chooses you.
Email chooses you. And so in many ways, Unspam came to be because we wanted to create a space because Mike and Matt wanted to create a space that was free of some of these pressures that you're talking about in these other conferences, right? These other conferences where it's very us versus them, where it's very like competing for leads, all this kind of thing. When behind the scenes, this is what's been happening all along, whether it was on the Litmus forums back in the day, right? We have any folks who were on the Litmus forums back in the day? Anybody out there? We got a few. And then the email geeks, kind of Slack and the other ways in which we're doing that. And for those of you who are new to email marketing, this is something you were part of a rich intergenerational tradition at this point, right? Like, so they wanted to create a space where it is easier to do the thing that we have been doing already.
Yeah, that is such this is going to turn into a rant if we're not careful. So
rant away.
Yes, but I think the other thing about because I see we're listening, right? We're always eavesdropping and we're hearing what you're saying. And so a lot of times I also hear people being like, oh, well, do I need to change careers? If I've only had email marketing titles, can I apply for a lifecycle marketing title? Like, can I make that jump? And what's really interesting about email, it's always been this like wild, wild west of like lawlessness and like, clearly, like the email clients don't follow the rules, like nothing, like the only rules that we have are like the GDPR, right? Let's be honest. And so like there are no rules, right? Like, yes, you can jump around, but the fact that like everything changes while also staying the same is such an interesting artifact of like marketing always having like shiny object syndrome. And if I'm like, who is they? I don't know who they is, but like if they, the people that like try to rename things to make them like seem like interesting and new again, let's be honest, probably to make money. If they don't constantly change it and rename it, like we're somehow losing. But just keep in mind that like what Logan said is totally true. Like none of this has changed. Just because we're calling it Lifecycle now, it's still the same dang thing, right? Like we're just calling it something different so that a vendor somewhere can make some more money, right? So it's the circle of life.
No, I won't. All right. I mean, you can't ever say circle of life without starting to launch into the Lion King, but yeah, that's fair.
true.
Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I think email, and I kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday. Email is like the oldest, not oldest, but like oldest and newest. Like, and I think that's why it's constantly under fire of like email's dead, and it's because people are trying to.
But newsletters are the hot new thing.
But then they're dead.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like people are trying to get their like fingerprints on it and be like, oh, I'm gonna take this thing and point out to everybody what's wrong with it, and then I'm gonna introduce the new way because then I make money off of it. And it's I feel like that's part of the power of all of this is that email is not. This isn't like a TikTok conference or something. It's thank goodness.
Oh, thank God it's not a TikTok conference.
As the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like,
just
am I
people
gonna say
wandering
that?
around doing like TikToks, filming themselves constantly is what I'm
That would be
imagining.
such a weird experience.
But it's the breadth of this. Like there's a lot of history in email, and there's a lot of like tests have been done. We know what works, and it's grounded on things like relationships and trust and the art and the science. And there's a lot of things that have been proven over decades, and now there's nuances being introduced. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for that.
And what you said yesterday is so true. Like email, people keep coming back to email because TikTok, let's just lean in, like they're gonna change the algorithms and suddenly you have no control anymore. Speaking of control either, see, we're gonna come full circling in. With email, you always have control. You own your audience, and no one else. The weird inbox ecosystem, as much as we hate deliverability challenges, let's be honest, like those exist because no one person owns that ecosystem, right? And that's kind of a positive thing. Like they can't change the algorithm on you and suddenly make your audience inaccessible.
Right.
Like that's why people always come back to email.
It's true. Like just thinking about the changes that. Have any of you had to deal with Google Analytics changes over the years?
Ugh.
Anybody? Yeah, right? Oh, and the groan that I heard. Like, yes, it's so true. Again, almost as though when there's a monopoly on something and one person controls all of it, it's not great. So there's very much something to that, which is the idea that because it's a little diffuse in that way and that there are all these different players in the game, that there is almost a stability to that, right?
Totally.
In the same way that I have 4 legs on this stool, if I had one, I would have tipped over hilariously at this point, I think.
Yes.
If you had been sitting here this long on a one-legged stool, that would be pretty impressive.
It would be really impressive right up until the point when it was at pratfall. Yeah, I think it was pretty much how that would go. I think pretty much. Okay, I'm gonna make a little pivot. I'm gonna test the power of the microphone at the moment, just the power that I have holding it, not how loud. I'm not gonna blow out our sound for anybody. Mike, where are you, Mike? I summon thee. Mike, will you talk to Mike and get the mic and we'll maybe if maybe some of you have thoughts or questions that you might want to take up here, if we could get that other handheld mic and
Or just
and
thoughts
then,
you want to share?
yeah,
Kind of
if there are
anything
thoughts
you
that you might want to share, we'd like to keep this like a little more interactive, and we got some time here before our next coffee break.
Did you get a mic from Mike? Thank you.
Yeah, that's mama, whatever it is in Chinese. It's like my mother's horse. I don't know. Anyone speak Chinese around here? So,
Probably.
bad joke. Sorry, flat. I should have prepped that one earlier.
That's right. Well, yeah, so the lights are very bright, but anybody have some thoughts as to what we've been saying? Anybody have any questions for our 2 illustrious guests up here? Anybody?
She's more illustrious.
I don't know.
You're both very illustrious. Let's not.
How about I just walk the mic?
You just walk the mic.
Yeah.
Walk the mic.
Anyone?
Walk the mic, Mike.
Walk the mic, Mike.
You just put your hand up. You know, it's like a political scene where we.
Oh, we've got a hand. We got a
There we
hand.
go. Coming over
The
here,
bravest
coming over
first
here.
person.
Hi there.
Hey.
I had a question. So yesterday, Lindsay, when you were doing your presentation, one of them was relationships, right? So when I was asking myself questions, it was about the use of AI. And, it's very helpful, and obviously, like, the speed at which we can do things, is nice for higher ups, seeing that you're getting more done. But then also, like, relationships with outside vendors, like illustrators and photographers, and I mean, maybe they're not on your team, but they're still people. When you're thinking about relationships, there's pluses and minuses. So, in that area, I put yes, but it's kind of a yes and a no. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how does that factor in when you're thinking about that?
So I would break it down even further. So if it's just usage of AI, that's a really big thing. Usage of AI, how and for what, right? Who's it for? Why are you doing it? And start to ask yourself questions about, like you kind of said, two things. One is, can I show the higher ups that I'm doing more? Why? And what's the long term of that? Like short term, sure, like short term gains of like, hey, I'm doing more with less. That's what we're all being asked to do all the time. But what's the long term impact of that? Like for what? And then like relationships with vendors and partners. Again, what's the short term and what's the long term? And I think the key part of the relationship line in Brave is long term. Is it the people you want and need to know, like, and trust you long term, not to hit your KPIs next quarter, not to keep your job right now, which is very important, but like to set you up for who you want to be and how you want to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Like, will this keep you on that track, or does it like throw you off? Does that help?
Was that helpful at all?
Yeah.
Is there another?
No, I mean,
You're being put a lot of pressure to say yes at that point. I'm realizing that that's not really a fair question to ask.
When I
It's
asked
kind of
myself,
loaded.
it was, about a specific project as opposed to like the whole of using it forever and ever. But to think about it as like a long-term investment as opposed to like this one execution, I think is probably like a better way of looking at that. So
Yeah. Are these like these other vendors, which I think is a great thing to be thinking about, right? Because we all, not we all, but like a lot of people use kind of external vendors for things. Like we've got, our fantastic photographer, Eric, who's wandering around, and our AV folks and everything. And so we want to think about not just what affects us, but also kind of what, affects these longer term relationships. So I appreciate you thinking about that as well. And thinking about like, how can I be respectful of them and value their energy and creativity and their expertise kind of going forward. What is your name, good sir?
Chris.
Chris. Thank you, Chris, for being the brave first person to speak up. We really appreciate that. Oh, I think we got, Mike, you've got somebody over there? All right. And then I think we've got somebody in the back as well.
Hi, I'm Jess.
Hi, Jess.
I have maybe a random question that is not on the agenda, but I was really impressed by Lindsay's email that came when we scanned the QR code at the end of your...
I was so nervous to write an email to any of you.
So I've been thinking a lot about like personal brands, and I've been in the industry for longer than I want to admit. And every time I come to these, I'm so impressed by all the speakers, and then I go and everyone has this amazing personal brand. How can I sort of start that if I haven't already? Like, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge in the industry, but I work for this other corporation that I'm not like a CEO or anything like that. So how do you start your own personal brand if you want to sort of expand and get more engaged in the community like you are?
I could talk about this for like days.
Same, yeah.
Look, we got
so
time.
much. Okay, first of all, if any of you, and this is not a plug, I'm not trying to sell anything, it's just because I truly, like, I get so excited about this. If any of you have that question, like truly reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to talk with you because I'm so passionate about it. Some quick things. This is one area that I think AI is really fun and helpful, is create a custom GPT and like start to, I'm being super duper broad sweeping things, but if you can create a custom GPT, not to create the stuff you publish, but to help you pull things out of yourself and get some perspective on what makes you special, on what makes you different, on what value you bring, because we're all so close to ourselves, obviously. And there's some really interesting feedback that can come from like pouring yourself and what you're passionate about and why you do what you do and what you're excited about and your strong opinions on things, and like just feed it stuff. And it can start to give things back to you that can give you some perspective on the value that you can add to the people you want to know, like, and trust you long term. That's a really fun and great place to start. And then I think the second thing I would add, because again, there's so much to talk about, is just start sharing things. Like LinkedIn. I am a huge fan of LinkedIn, and it can add so much value to everyone in this room, but also in the same breath, what you share there also doesn't matter. So it's a really public place that can give you a ton of like leads and build your audience and stuff. But it's also like if you post something that flops, unless you say something really like mean or like
inflammatory,
like don't say something that's going to get like offend people. But if you're like, here's my opinion, and people are like, I don't care, you're like, okay, and then just it's a great place for testing and for trying new things. So those are the 2 places I would start. And also, I've talked about it all day. So.
I mean, just to double down on what Lindsay said, like, I think you could argue that I built a strong personal brand and I didn't set out.
You could argue that, yes.
Okay.
I would.
Thank you. But I didn't set out to do that, which maybe sounds kind of weird. But what I did feel very strongly about is that, like, I felt like I had opinions. And I felt very strongly that those opinions like needed to be heard. And so, a long time ago, it was about rendering, whatever. But so my encouragement to you would be to figure out like, what's your rant almost? Like what's pissing you off that you want to go like why are you doing it that way? Or like, what's wrong about this? Or maybe that's just me where I came from a place of like annoyance and anger. Again, therapy.
Energy is where you find it. Look, that's
Energy is where
also
you find
something
it,
I got
yeah.
in therapy, so that's great, yeah.
Maybe you're a more positive person and you're like, I just really want to help people and I figured out this secret thing that I want to share with the universe, right? And the trick is to get over the scary feeling. Like Lindsay said, who cares what social media thinks? Like, delete it later if it's a flop, like whatever, right? So that's the scariest part, is putting yourself out there. But personal brands are built on opinions, right? Or thought leaders. They're just people with opinions.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so just to kind of summarize a little bit here of what I was hearing. So you find a reflective listener of some sort, right? Maybe that's a custom GPT, maybe that's a trusted friend or mentor who you can be like, I'm passionate about these things, or if you have like a therapist or a coach, right? Like either of those things can, those sorts of roles can help with that, because trying to figure out like, what am I good at? Like, we have so many things that get in the way of that. So having somebody or something be able to kind of reflect back to us what they're hearing us say and what we feel passionate about. There was a period of time in my life when I had a life coaching practice. This was years ago. And that was so much of what I did with my clients, was just listen and be like, all right, so it sounds like you're really passionate about these things. Let's double down on these things and figure out how you take actionable next steps. So first it's just identifying, right? Identifying the things that you are good at, which is stupidly harder than it should be, right? Like, to be able to do that.
Yes.
And why also we need the validation, like, of other people sometimes to be like, oh yeah, I guess I am good at that thing. And then also find a place for low risk experimentation, right? Low risk experimentation, LinkedIn being a good platform for that, because again, who the fuck cares? Write a thing, see if it goes well, see if it doesn't. All right, we got another question. Thank you, Jess.
Where's the hand?
Oh, right there. Next, turn around.
Oh.
But not too far
and
around.
one more thing, don't be worried about being a senior executive. I started really good emails as a junior marketing while I was going to school. So you don't have to have, a pedigree behind you.
No.
Also a good note. Hi, what's your name and where are you from?
Anna, I'm from Arizona.
That's great. I just added that last bit because it sounded like something people would say at this moment.
Yeah.
What's your question?
So I hear a lot of conversations about AI, and one of the things that, has come up is AI evolving emails, meaning, we have AI tools that send you the email at the right time, depending on what your, algorithm is that you look at emails. But then when we started talking about the tools that are going to read your emails and that populate what folder in your inbox these emails are going to end up, I became very curious as to how that's going to evolve our industry in email marketing, because now you have an AI tool reading your email and reading it out loud. And yesterday that the lady was presenting the text base, it kind of caught my attention as to, I need to present an email in a beautiful format, but now I have to think about that e-reader, how it's going to do. So is the code going to evolve, or what do you guys think about this?
All right. I mean, I've got an immediate thing.
I have some thoughts.
I
too.
know
Go
you do.
first.
I know you do. I
Go
know
first.
you
Go
do.
first.
I mean, one is that while there are AI tools that are developing to do that, we know from an accessibility standpoint that people have been listening to emails for a very long time. So the code that exists to make emails more accessible for screen readers, which is largely like semantic HTML and giving some thought as to like what images we put alt text for because we want them described versus like is that really contributing to the content and do I just leave the alt text tag there but blank so that it doesn't get read out. That I don't the code doesn't really I don't think will change very much in that sense because the same code that screen readers use to navigate that already will be very similar to like what AI is probably going to be using to read it out to you in that. It is a really good, so if AI is making us think more about accessibility in that way, because also we're not talking about just people who use screen readers because they're completely visually impaired. Sometimes there's partial impairment, sometimes it's temporary, right? Like sometimes there's just periods of time where it's just going to be easier to hear emails than read them. So for us to think about how does our content sound in an email when it's just being read out is something that we absolutely want to like keep thinking about. Justine, over to you.
So Sarah's talk later today, don't miss it. She's going to talk about some things that are directly applicable to this, like kind of easy, like accessibility wins and myths that are going to contribute to that too. But my other thought is that with AI, like reading and categorizing people's emails, and you mentioned Naomi's talk on like the plain text-like email. First of all, I'm really impressed with how good AI is at like OCRing, like reading text as part of an image. And this isn't a license to go build a bunch of like image-based emails and not put any live text in them. I know. But I think as with anything, there's a balance, right? So like maybe, overly designed emails, like maybe we will see more text-based emails. Like I'm not going to try to predict trends because there's a whole other talk from Tyler later today about trends. But in addition to everything that Logan said, like I think that there's going to be an incentive to make sure that emails are easily read, easily understood by the AI. But we just said too that the AIs hallucinate, they make shit up. Like, I, for one, I don't use Apple Mail anymore. I just have Gmail on my phone. But I do have like the Apple Intelligence stuff turned on my text messages, and then like bonkers way that it summarizes those things and pulls out, it makes everything seem like an emergency, right? And so I'm about ready to turn it off because I'm so dang annoyed by it. But I feel like because I'm in MarTech and I like am supposed to be a leader that I'm like supposed to like these things, even though like I hate them sometimes. So I also think that a lot of people are gonna like have like visceral reactions like that one that I do in my gut and are just like, but most normal people are just gonna turn it off, right? Not force their way through it. So I think the other thing is like you have to keep knowing your audience. You keep having to have these conversations because it could be that you use you have a tech laggard audience. Like just because everyone on LinkedIn is talking about AI doesn't mean that most normal people are using it. So that would be my addition to that.
Oh, I'm going to ask my ChatGPT, and she'll probably get back to me tomorrow. And then I'll let you know what she says.
Oh yes, go ahead, Mike.
I'll just say 5 minutes. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Just as a quick follow-up note to that as well. So when we're talking about how things stay the same and change, right? Like at the same time, like these are new parameters to kind of navigate. When we're talking about email design, and when I'm talking about design, I'm not talking about graphics necessarily. I'm talking about email design as a subset of information design.
Yes.
And information design just exists because we're trying to figure out the best way to present things to other human beings so that they can process it. In the same way that we designed this conference with plenty of breaks between things so that you have time to like stop and think for a minute instead of just cramming every session one after another, right? And that's why, like in emails, we want, you know, kind of negative space around content. So those principles, like the underlying information design principles that guide how we put together information to present to other people, they don't change because our brains don't change that much. I mean, you know, in however many years, eventually they will shift a bit. But at this moment, as human beings, like the way that we take in information doesn't really change. So these underlying principles will remain the same. We just have to apply them to new parameters and kind of new scenarios. Really good. Do we have? I think we have time for one more. Oh, we got one right down front here.
Run, Mike, run.
Or you know, just skip.
I'm trotting.
John,
Where is it at?
right here in the
Right in
white
front,
cardigan.
Aubrey, yeah.
The lovely white cardigan. What is your name and where are you from?
I'm Aubrey, otherwise known as Cardigan Spice, according to
Cardigan
one of my friends.
Spice. Hello, Cardigan Spice.
So on the topic of AI, so I wear also a digital marketing hat, and there's a lot of talk in the SEO space. I know we're at an email conference, but I promise it's related. Stay with me. Ahrefs, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they were talking the other day about their research about click-through rates dropping for search by 34% due to AI summaries. And we were just talking here about AI and how it's reading things and it's summarizing things, and now if you don't know, it's scraping e-commerce things. And at some point, I know a lot of our technologies take away our choice. We've seen that happen over time. And so I wonder if maybe you can speak to sort of in that lifecycle relationship side of things, how email can drive value that like we can continue to think about as AI continues to integrate. Like it's more than just your sale or whatever, like there's something there that is tangible that we can sort of trump over, sorry, poor choice of words, these AI summaries through the value of relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start like really ethereal, and then you guys can like actually get more.
I love an ethereal start.
Yeah. Okay, so summarizing a lot of what has been said, no one really knows. A lot of people are claiming to know. No one knows. I was talking to somebody else yesterday about how the KPIs and all the metrics and everything that we're measuring, and as everything as we know it, are dropping and changing, and like, I think are going to be completely out the window a few years from now. Everything that we're measuring, so much of what we're measuring now is just not going. It's just going to be either irrelevant or all of the numbers. Click-through, like, you know, like conversion rates and all the rates are going to be completely different numbers if we're even still measuring them. So what are we to do? You're right. It's all about relationships. Email is owned. Email is person to person. Just like what I was talking about yesterday, it gives you an opportunity to really control the message that you're sending to a whole bunch of people and to build relationships and trust. And so I think this is a stay the course and like focus on the humans on the other side. And I know it's so much easier said than done, which is why I'm going to pass it off to you two. But like, if you can focus on the big picture of like, these are people, we're building relationships with human beings, and the numbers are going to be really, really crazy. But at the end of the day, like, we are like building and strengthening relationships long term. The numbers are going to be all wackadoodle all outside of that. But I think that there's a real opportunity for stability, like we've talked about earlier, in email that there isn't in a lot of other areas of digital marketing. Yeah. Okay, now you guys tell them exactly what to do.
Well, the first step is, do you have a thought, Justine?
I do have a thought. And so I think what's really interesting is like, you know, your LinkedIn feed is your own little echo chamber that kind of reflects back who you are and what kind of role you have and all that kind of stuff. And
that feels scary to say.
I mean, it is, but that's
true.
just the reality, right? And so because of the nature of who I follow, whatever, like I see a lot of probably the same stuff you do, which is like CMOs and like marketing leaders and executives like bemoaning how performance marketing, which let's be honest, like a lot of us are probably bucketed in that thing in the minds of our CMOs and our executives, right? where like executives keep losing their jobs because like they're not hitting the numbers. A lot of them are fed up with it and they're turning to fractional work because they're just like, screw this, like no one values what I do anymore. And then there's a whole other group of people that are kind of shouting from the sidelines saying, well, this is why you shouldn't have forgotten brand marketing, and like, why did you go full hog on numbers for the last 10 years? Yeah, no, I am too, right? And so I think what Lindsay said is completely true. Like, I think that if you don't follow Rand Fishkin, he's like the former CEO of Moz. He talks about this a lot. He talks about zero-click marketing on LinkedIn, and it's definitely something you should like learn about because he's great, and he's really digging into like how do we measure the immeasurable when marketing is becoming so hard to measure now. And so I think we just gotta kind of ride it out. We gotta learn. We gotta keep talking. We gotta keep sharing, and that's why we can't do what the weird CMO conference people do, which is like say like, well, I think I know this thing, but I'm gonna hide it and not share it with you, and
Until
right?
I find a way to make money off.
Until I find a way to make money off of it, because that's the only way we're gonna get through all this is to like kind of figure it out together. So I don't have any great,
I can't think of a better way to close the session with that.
Oh, okay.
Is that the way we're going to get through this is all together. So a big round of applause for my illustrious, I'm going to use it again, guests up here.